All right, looks like we're live. Testing the microphone and such. See if it'll come on, play. All right, looks like we're live. All right, so it's working. Pop out the chat, and so it begins. So I'll read a couple of comments to start, and see how that goes, and move on from there. And such. Oh yeah, I wanted to post the link. The David Chappelle, whatever it's called, something Chappelle. That thing I did a couple of weeks ago. The link's below. Unfortunately, my mic, something was wrong. It wasn't my mic. It was something with the connection. I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the future if I try to get in there again. Anyway, the quality's not too good, so it sort of ruins the fun. So I don't know if it's worth listening to because most of my sentences are broken. But anyway, it's there finally. Yeah, I wanted to do it today, but I had previous obligation and such, so couldn't. No, couldn't. So anyway, so yeah, enough. All right, comments. You could talk forever on some of these comments. They're just so bad. So some Rosa, whatever, Ross Rosa, fake, I don't know, some kind of gibberish X science. So fake science, he says, to one of the Talking Physics videos. So you open a room, you invite anybody to come into the room. I'll talk to anybody who's willing to have a rational conversation, and anyone can challenge what I'm saying, and they'll call it fake. So even though it's as open as you can make it, as honestly presented as you can present it, they'll call it fake. Just amazing losers. You make a video, questions, 10-minute video, 3 little questions to answer about fundamental experiments in physics, dealing with relativity and quantum mechanics. And they could just answer those, defeat me completely by providing reasonable answers to those problems. So then the Joey Ramone guy, who I quite sensibly said is a suspect character, posts a smiley face as a response to that fake science comment. So Joey is of the mind that somehow this is fake. Somehow this is something less than what the other great science providers provide, where they just tell you and then never answer any of your questions or just block you like Ken Wheeler. So what's that? That's just called garbage. So yes, that will be deleted. I mean, just garbage. That's the best you can come up with. So again, it's just more evidence I'm winning, right? This is the best argument they can come up with. Fake science. When there's absolutely nothing about it that's fake. No fake evidence, no fake animations, no fake demonstrations, no fake experiments even. No, I don't just show the results and say, look, see, I did the experiment. Here's the results. Nothing like that happens here. Anyway, so rude. So some idiot called DevLO, I don't know what that is. It's funny how Gary has asked his groupies from his other channel to help him out on this channel with puff questions. So just an overt lie. So this guy will be blocked because it's just a lie. I haven't asked anybody to do anything. It's just an insane lie. I don't even ask people to subscribe to the channel of nothing. It's just an insane lie. Okay. Hey, Gary, where did you learn physics? Well, I've already explained that. I learned a lot in my life just as a mechanic. And then for the last 7 years, I've watched hundreds of more than hour-long physics lectures. Hundreds of them. Yeah, that's where I learned it. I learned it at MIT and at Yale and Stanford. Yes, I didn't pay. Yes, I did the free thing online. I didn't get a degree, but I learned a lot. Idiot. Hey, Gary, what is your IQ? Who cares? I don't. It's good. Let's just say that. It's a good IQ. It's not a bad IQ. It probably beats yours. Probably does. Hey Gary, how do I send you money? Well, again, if clearly this is what he wants to do, but what's this for? What's this question about? What's it have to do with anything? Where have I haven't ever on my own said, oh, go to my website and click the donate button or do this. None of that. Not a single. I don't do it in every video. Unlike Ken Wheeler, it's not in every description of every video. Tell me to jump off a cliff or give me some money. I don't have to remind. I don't remind people. I don't nag people. What are you typing this rubbish for? Hey, Gary, you won me over from Ken Wheeler with your superior logic. Then what is this comment about? What's the point of this? I don't understand. Well, you're not reasonable. You're irrational and insane. That's what it comes down to. Anyway, so here we go. He should thank God. My smiley face. That's silly. His philosophy groupies. So again, this idea that if people have a common understanding, that it's not for any good reason, they're just groupies. And again, I've done everything I can to demonstrate. I mean, again, how much more open about things can I be? I've never treated my groupies like groupies. Okay, I've never either exploited them or have I in any way encouraged them to be groupies, to like me. I make arguments on the internet. That's all I do, fuckface. Anyway, are as imbecilic and cowardly as himself. And again, so it's demonstration of cowardice for me to say, well, why don't you come into this room and defend your accusations, you liar? You just go on the internet and lie about people. So why don't you have the balls to defend your lying, you little scum? You're the coward. Clearly, I'm the one with the open room, and clearly you're the one hiding behind a whatever div illo, an account with no content. Anyway, otherwise, anyone who advocates termination of all life, not relevant to this channel at all, if they applied logic to their own philosophy, would start with themselves. So again, you prevent rape by not raping. That's how you prevent rape. It doesn't make any sense at all. You stop the Nazis by not being a Nazi. No, that wouldn't work either. You cure cancer by not getting cancer. Wouldn't work either. So again, vacuous. He insults the intelligence of what he calls my groupies, and then he says something this stupid. Amazing. Start with themselves and immediately commit suicide. So again, he thinks you prevent the birth. I would have prevented my birth if if I committed suicide before I was born. Let's see, how else would this work? It's clearly not my behavior that creates living things that have to kill themselves. It's clearly somebody else's behavior. And killing myself, you have to really quite understand that killing myself wouldn't stop rape. It wouldn't stop global warming. It won't stop economic inequity. It won't stop exploitation of China people. It won't do any of those things. Killing myself won't solve any problem in the world. All right. But these losers, no, you're the idiot and the loser. Hiding behind a nothing account are a bunch of pseudo-intellectual. You're not even a pseudo-intellectual. You're clearly a perfect retard. Internet nerds. And again, you're demonstrating what? That you're Mr. Cool, who pontificate from this comfort of the first world suburbia. And why shouldn't people in the intellectual community, people who've had it better, who have the better and higher education, it seems to me they should be doing the articulation and they should be making things called arguments because they've had more training in the process of doing logic and thinking, where other people haven't had the benefits of the education. They didn't get to go to high school, and they didn't get to watch free lectures and all that stuff. So again, just demonstrate how stupid you are. You think all the great philosophers should come from the bottom of a coal mine. Then you're an idiot. And probably sponge off welfare like their guru Gary. So again, I don't get welfare. So again, just the more fake arguments, just more assertions you don't back up with anything, like a fact. And again, stuff that's not even close to related to this channel and the subjects on this channel and what's asserted on this channel. So again, attack the messenger. Therefore, you've evaded your responsibility to actually defeat the message. You coward. You sniveling weasel of a human being. All in all, quite a clown show. And your show is somehow a better show. What's your show? The Trump show? You're a little Trumpy? Quite certainly. Stupid and arrogant. You got those. And free entertainment to boot. Well, you're not entertaining. You're obnoxious, annoying. You might as well be a fucking parasitic little tick or something, and you should be, Raid should come to the rescue. You're a piece of garbage as a human being. Just absolute shit. An unaccomplished, nitpicky, naysaying, petty, do nothing piece of crap. Okay, who can't do. And resents anybody who can. You suck entirely. All right, Ingrid D. John. Okay, she says unification, Gary, is not important. Well, you don't think so. I think so. I think it's a fundamental logical point to be made that the universe gets simpler going down, not more complicated. And there would be fundamental, elemental principles at the core, and that's essentially the description of the unification, is understanding that everything has the same mechanism as a cause. There isn't bent space doing it one place, bent space doing speed of light force over here, and then quantum mechanical wavy things doing bent space at the speed of light force transmission in the form of virtual photons over here. Two completely different mechanisms is idiotic. It would mean only a new constant. That's not what it would mean anyway. See, these people are so caught up in this idiotic math crap that they think math is physics, and it really isn't. It's just a way of modeling some of the physics. And the model can be really explicit or it can be really loose. Models can have a high degree of accuracy or just use like a vague representation, bouncing ball and something, and it doesn't have any of the specifics. It's not really the way. I can draw a picture of the Earth, and it's not really the Earth, and it doesn't have the size of the Earth and the mass of the Earth. It's just a representation. And mathematics allows you to represent some elements of reality, but it's only some of the elements. And there's not going to be unification mathematics because the different manifestations of the force are, in fact, different manifestations of a force. And they won't mathematically function the same. Polarized light and such. There's not going to be anything to... if I segregate all the big fish from little fish in the ocean, the mathematics used to describe fish will be different for the two piles of fish. There won't be a common mathematics because there isn't a common physics for their circumstance. So again, it's just silly. This isn't about some unification math. All right, it would only mean a new constant and a new equation. Again, there's this whole idea that you're going to do the meaning of the universe in the form of one equation is just stupid. You can't do a checkerboard that way. One equation can't say it all. And again, mathematics can't say anything about describing circumstances that are it can't deal with the difference between the spaces on the checkerboard, the black and red squares, and the concept of checker. There's not going to be any math that enables you to understand that those are two different things. The moving checkers function completely different than the static board. They both have properties, and there's no equation ever going to be written that will describe the function of their interaction. Math can only do so much. So fuck you. And you said would introduce new physics. So a new equation would be introduced in physics. Okay, so it's not a new constant and a new equation. That's your misunderstanding of what unification is. Unification gets to the elemental functions, and that's the unification, is the recognition that it's all made out of the same stuff. All right, I think that's all that was worth anything. Some idiot said, Bob B, so we know nothing. I don't know what that means. It doesn't say anything. What does that mean? I never said we know nothing. I've never implied it. I don't even know what that means. I just don't. Just doesn't make any sense at all. Ingrid says here in another post, if you books say the universe does not exist at all, question mark. I don't care. Why is it, you know, why would I care about this? I have a question about the Big Bang. What if it never happened? Is the universe infinite in time and space, Gary? Again, who cares? It's not my subject. I don't think it's meaningful to pursue an answer to those questions and call it physics. Sorry, that's metaphysics, some other kind of physics. I don't know. It's not physics, though. You're not going to find any evidence that's going to answer those questions. And I would fundamentally argue what's clearly not at the core of the universe is a God or intelligence or purpose or any of that shit. If you're holding out for that mush, you're going to be disappointed. Dullard says space does not exist. Who cares? I'm not here to debunk Dullard. What does Dullard say? I mean, what exactly, why is he relevant beyond all the Tesla nuts thinking he's some kind of God? But beyond the Tesla nuts, what is his credibility? What has he done? I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know what his great contribution is, except he's remade a few of Tesla's Sparky machines. So what? All right. So anyway, just mush comments. So I already answered that. Somebody else provide another answer. So I think that's it. Okay. So on to the new comments. Oh, another hi sir person. I just don't know. No, I mean, it's fine. You can, you know, it's just kind of a weird way to address people. You don't really have to address me as anything. But sir seems a little strange to me. I've watched the two, watched this first and found them interesting. Oh, good. Good job, Daniel. Okay. Everyone needs to begin with Gary's fundamental videos. Science is one of my weak areas, but Gary's theory is easy to grasp when one is uninformed on the subject. I don't know if it's easy because you do have to put in some time and you do have to, I mean, there's a lot, physics is a little bit complicated when you move from gravity to magnetism to the nuclear forces, you know, the structure of atoms. It does get a little bit, you know, it's more, it's, you know, you have to do a little bit of work. You know, it's just not going to, you're going to pick it up in 5 minutes. It's going to take a little longer than that. Daniel, I've studied physics a bit and I am very interested in it, but other ideas about how it actually works is perfectly fine with me. Yeah, well, I just don't get this whole, the duality thing where they did the particle wave thing is dumb enough. but people saying any theory will do. I don't know. I just don't get this whole. If I was going to believe in God, I was pretty sure I wouldn't say, well, any God will do. Just, I don't care. Horse God, frog God, mud God. I don't care. That just doesn't sound right. Mainstream science has many problems. So does a lot of dissident science. Most of the dissident science, in my opinion, has got more problems. They don't even answer questions at all. They don't deal with issues at all. The particle guru, for example. I mean, he's talking about a particle model, and he hasn't even gone to the trouble of dealing with the biggest questions that destroyed particle gravity 300 years ago. Those problems are still real problems, and if you can't overcome them with some kind of explanation, yeah, you haven't moved the bar any higher. You haven't advanced it any. That's a theory. You got to fix the problems before you can say, I have a new model that works. The problem science has today, in my view, is that it has taken general mathematics that can describe things in a certain limited circumstance into extremes, and I think they still work. Well, the problem is mathematics, and the problem is that their formulas are not complete. They are gerrymandered, so to speak. They're slopped together. And yes, that's dangerous to think that, this math is the real mechanism, and now I can run it and I can see what it does when I poke this fake mathematical model, and yeah, it'll go places that the real world can't go because the mathematical model isn't complete and it doesn't have the rational restraints on it because it's a superficial representation of the reality. Probably a way of explaining that more explicitly. It's like an animation can have really fixed limitations. I sort of want to work on one for this model. And there's so many things you have to consider when you're trying to model something, because you can't model it in 3 dimensions easily at all. So you have to make it 2-dimensional. And you have to understand, if you're making it 2-dimensional, you have to account for the fact that 3rd dimension is leaking some of the energy out of the system. And, it's you're getting into big trouble when you're doing 2-dimensional math in a 3-dimensional world. That kind of argument can be made. Clearly they think the math is right, and therefore they think everything they can make the math do is something that will happen in the real universe. And that's how antiparticles were created. And it's, yeah, I say that's bad science. All right. It's a bit like using mathematics to describe general human interaction and applying them to a boxing fight and think the same rules still apply and work in such an extreme. Well, yes, clearly physics isn't as complicated as human psychology. So, I mean, it's a bit of a leap. But I'm just saying that, yes, clearly their math, even though physics is a lot simpler, they have assumed they have correctly understood. And what they have in their math is things like Heisenberg and Huygens that they have never demonstrated to be actual facts, never proven to be actual facts. And those wrong assumptions, if they are wrong, are kind of catastrophic. I mean, they're huge miscalculations about causes and subsequent effects. I heard you are a Chinese hired psyop trying to derail American science. Dude, that's funny. Ha 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 ha. Huh. What the world needs now is more dead comedians. Ugh. People trying to be funny. Quite hateable. Maybe we'll just give him a timeout. Yeah. Yeah, just really not clever. So I guess we're done with the live interaction. Yeah. Yeah, so I do want to make another questions video, and pile on a few more examples of, problems. And, one of the ones is, this is a real provable point. And what's disappointing though is I think even if I proved the point, I don't know if people will take it, whether they'll recognize that it's a significant blow, to their theory. But it's the whole radio wave interference thing. And I've pointed out before that when you use radio waves like radar or regular AM radio, and you send two signals from the same signal from two separate antennas to duplicate the two-slit experiment, for example, that all they're doing really is jamming their own signal. So when the two signals converge and constructively interfere, they're okay. But when they're out of cycle, when one travels a shorter path than the other, and all the shorter path and than the other, when they have uneven arrival times because of the change in the distance, when you have two things, the distance changes. This distance is longer to this point than this distance, which means they're out of phase, which means if they were bullets, you'd have, so say if I shot two guns and I shot the bullets 1 second between the bullets, you could sort of understand if I changed the distance that when they're perfectly destructively interfering, it would mean there would be a bullet, just one bullet every half second. And then when they're constructively interfering, there'd be two bullets hitting the thing at every 1 second. And so destructive interference means one bullet every half second. And constructive means two bullets every second. So the same amount of energy, just distributed differently. And clearly, if all you can see with your receiver is bullets coming at 1 second intervals, because you have a tuned receiver that only picks up that frequency, doesn't pick up twice the frequency, half second, it only picks up the frequency at 1 second interval bullets, you won't be able to see the bullets coming every half second. They're still hitting you, but you can't receive them because your receiver isn't tuned to that frequency. And that's exactly what they do with the experiment. That's why they use a sound tone carried on the transmitted signal for that very reason, because the experiment actually doesn't work if you just count the bullets. So if you just have a detector that counts bullets, not frequency, you won't see any interference pattern at all. And yeah, so I think that's quite provable. So there's a proof that'll dismantle the idea that at least radio waves or radar are doing the same thing light is doing. And in a sense, that's a really important separation, because if I can prove that radar and radio waves aren't doing what light is doing and not doing what maybe electrons are doing, that should be meaningful evidence to somebody. You would hope, you would think. See, the problem with photons is you can't, there's no way to create a photon detector once the radiation is doubled. So you can't double the frequency of a light ray and have any hope of receiving it as light. Yeah. But even more importantly, I would argue, the reason why the dark spots are dark in the two-slit experiment and the single-slit experiment isn't because the two beams are interfering with each other. It's because the electrons have deflected the photons in specific places. So the truth is that when light's going through two slits, it's a fundamentally different experiment than radio waves from two different sources. It's not the same experiment at all. I mean, it's sort of overtly obvious it's not the same experiment in that you don't send one radio signal in to two slits. You can't do that, and it doesn't work. So that's why they use two antennas, is because they can't create a two-slit experiment for radio waves or radar. Because you can't have quantum mechanical effects because the surfaces you would use for slits would be so big that there wouldn't be any electrons in the field enough to hit. So there couldn't be any electrons couldn't deflect the signal because there's too few of them because the slits are too monstrous. It's only when you make the slits small and make the opening very, very small that you create a field capable of producing the effect. So anyway, that's sort of another question I'll be posing. I know there's another subject. I forgot what it is. Oh yeah, the electrons, the de Broglie thing, where they gave electrons a virtual frequency commensurate to their acceleration speed. Yeah, but that one's not as clear. You know, I can make as clear and complete an argument. I need an ashtray of some kind. Let's see. I don't think I'll use the hard drive as an ashtray. Let's see. There should be something. Well, I'll let it burn out. Just let it sit there and die on its own. Yeah, it's got some cigarettes. Kind of broken, but they burn okay. You know, a little bit of tape, no problem. So what was I going to say about electrons? Remind me of some other thing I wanted to comment on. Yes, it was the subject of antiparticles and the experiments they used to the cloud chamber experiments. And I was thinking about the way the electrons move and the fact that when you don't have a voltage, they slow down and they're absorbed by something. They end up going into a little spiral and disappearing. And, you know, part of the question is how can an electron that does move, let's say it's in a magnetic field, and the electron moves in the magnetic field but still has its forward velocity. It would have to be because the energy propelling the electron is moving in all directions. So the electrical potential is essentially in all directions. And so no matter where the electron goes, it can't move away from the force that's being radiated because the force isn't a straight line. The force isn't a laser beam of force. So if I wanted to push something, I could use a laser beam. Right? You can almost see it. Almost. Yeah, I'll show like the cigarette and then you'll be able to see it. So we could think about this being voltage. Yeah, you can almost see it. More smoke. And the cigarette must have a crack in it. It's got to be a hole in it. Oh, there's the crack. Okay, I gotta patch the crack in the paper. Now, I don't know whether it happened in the mail or whether it's they were just damn cheap because they were broken. All right, went out. All right, so the laser beam if you thought of that as voltage. Now, the voltage potential can be pinpoint in the sense that you could create something where it's just a tiny little thing that's the anode, so to speak, the cathode and the anode at the other end. And that is in some respects potentially controllable, but on a TV it really isn't, because the anode's huge. So the anode's covering a whole huge area where the electron is traveling. So essentially the voltage isn't a laser beam. The voltage is filling the whole range. It's filling all that space. The whole cathode ray tube size is being filled with the voltage potential. So anywhere the electron goes, it's getting pushed by the voltage, because it just goes from one ray. It just hits the next ray. There's a ray here, there's a ray here, there's a ray here, there's a ray here, there's a ray. When the magnets move the electron, they're just moving the electron in a field of voltage. So no matter where the electron goes, it's still going to get pushed forward, because there's always this voltage pushing it. Now, the same thing could happen in a cloud chamber. So it's really delicate, this idea of catching electrons being emitted by, say, a radioactive material, because we don't see the cathode in that case. So we can't really see how the force is radiating that's expelling the electron. But if the force has a cone to it and the electron's in the center of that cone, obviously the electron could move quite a bit in that cone and still be moving forward. And only when it goes outside of that cone does it run out of energy. And so it's a little more complicated than they describe. So again, the model is a little simpler than the truth. And I think there's a substantial change based on that simplification. It doesn't do justice to the truth. So there's this impression that in a cathode ray tube, that this beam is being traced across the surface, and it's really not. Just the electrons are being traced, but the beam itself isn't. The electrons are being moved by magnetism. There's no beam. The beams aren't getting affected at all. The force isn't being affected at all. The electron's just being moved in the force. So it's, when I was 15, I thought it was this laser beam going back and forth, tracing across. And it really isn't the way it's really working. There's an electron being moved in a field of, it's like a school of fish is pushing a basketball. And it doesn't matter where the basketball goes, because there's always going to be a fish there. Something like that. So, no comments. All right, you people aren't helping much. I don't see any comments anyway. Questions, accusations, something? Nothing? So anyway, that's another subject that I think there's a lot of assumptions about electrons that I think can be proven to be inaccurate. Like I said, I think the idea of de Broglie idea of giving electrons an entirely fake frequency to make them fit in wave mechanics is just such a fraud, because what electrons are doing is fundamentally different than what photons are doing. Photons hit electrons, where electrons bounce off of other electrons. They bounce off the force. They never hit each other. They're shooting bullets. So let's just think of like two Earths, and both Earths are emitting bullets, and they're bullets that only another Earth feels. If it was a sun, the sun would just go right through the sun, but they only affect Earths. So they're capable of pushing something away. And so the two objects are radiating these bullets. And so they can't crash into each other because the bullets hit them before they get too close to the thing. And the closer they are, the more bullets hit them. So the more likely they are to deflect around each other than ever hit each other. So they don't have purely kinetic interactions. Their interactions are completely dependent on their speed. So the faster they're going, the less deflection. The slower they're going, the more deflection. They can actually be turned 90 degrees. Even though they're heading right for each other, they can both turn 90 degrees if they're moving slowly enough. And, that would never happen in an interaction with a photon and an electron. Oh, here we go. Commando, not a great name. Hey, Gary, I know this is off topic, but I really want to do off topic. But I recently saw your video where you did a while back on consciousness and found it really insightful. Just thought I'd let you know. Appreciate what you do a lot. Okay, but, well, you probably should just type that as a comment on the video you watched and leave it at that. Whatever. Just don't really want to mix the two channels. The two philosophy. This is physics. That's philosophy. This is physics. Two different sciences. As I said in my original comment, I only have watched your 2 introduction videos. So if you have answered this in another video, I'm sorry. Go ahead. My question is, what makes the force turn 90 degrees? Just one of those rule kind of things. The point is this is a possible explanation. I've just pointed out that the red force and the black force, like the black and red squares on a checkerboard, don't intersect. So if you thought about the 3-dimensional geometry of the universe and you thought about the fact of it being layered, so this layer's red, this layer's black, this layer's red, this layer's black, and we go like that in 3 dimensions. So all 3 dimensions, the red and black could never intersect. So forces would be moving, but they could never hit each other. The red could never hit a black. And the argument is that matter bit allows the two to interact. So those 2 off dimensions are tied into the same dimension and they can intersect. So they can intersect head on, or they can intersect at right angles and do this thing. So that's where it sort of comes from. The matter bits allow a perpendicular contact to happen. Let's say it doesn't allow head-on collisions between red and, let's say, black, electron force and proton force, but it does allow the 90-degree interaction. And it's just one of the rules. It's the way the mechanism works. I mean, obviously, I really love to put under a microscope and show you it happening, but I can't do that. I'm saying there's a mechanism, and I don't think it's of all the assumptions you have in physics, I think this is a tiny assumption to have to accept. It's a lot easier than bent space or virtual photons or time dimensions or all the other crap they made up. It's a pretty simple argument to say there's a function and there's a reason. Maybe it's the shape. I've pointed out how arrows are shaped. They have a slope, and the slope would, if arrows were really how they were shaped, diamond shaped or something, you could sort of understand that if 2 things hit on an angle, they would end up bending off their slopes and creating a 90-degree interaction. So it might be something that simple. There's probably simple geometry at the core. So I would argue that whatever the explanation, it probably has something to do with squares and triangles. And it probably is really simple geometry at the core. in my opinion. Nothing emanates magical forces. And I'm sort of arguing that the fundamental function of the universe is geometric, and that's because the elements are, in fact, geometric. So, says it's interesting. Thank you. Yes. Well, I guess you're welcome or something. What is an experiment, even theoretical, that could demonstrate this? Well, I guess I explained that. Yeah. What do you think a single most important fact traditional physics gets wrong? Well, I think both theories are fundamentally flawed. Einstein's bent space is a silly idea. There's not some magical engine that pulls space. Just no. It's just a magical mechanism. It doesn't make any sense. An infinite space puller made out of just the idea of having mass. Somehow having mass means you automatically eat space. It just doesn't mean anything. So I think that's just plainly wrong. It's clearly wrong to think that photons are not force and that somehow they break the rule of force, which is forces don't interact with forces. So I think clearly that's wrong to think photons are bent by gravity. They're not. And then quantum mechanics just makes this huge blunder of inventing virtual photons and thinking that patterns are always created by waves and that patterns aren't just created by angles. Angles are in the math. Okay. I mean, Maxwell's equations is full of angles. It's not full of waves. It's full of angles. It's full of rays of force. So in a funny way, quantum mechanics is actually right. It's just they're describing it wrong. I mean, that's the irony of it. It's their description of their own science that is fundamentally paradoxically stupid. But the actual equations have a very genuine kernel of got it right. So instead of calling it a pattern creation, equation, they could have called it the pattern equation. What's his name? Schrodinger's pattern equation. They could have called it that. But instead they called it a wave equation. Even though it just has an angle in it. It doesn't have a wave anywhere in it. It has an angle in it. An angle that force moves at. And it's just kind of funny that they call it wave when it's an angle. It's not a wave. So, I don't know how to describe that exactly. To say it's wrong, it's not entirely wrong. It's more wrong in how they describe it than how they actually calculate it. If I can say it that way. But fundamentally, quantum mechanics is premised on things like Heisenberg, and that's just wrong. An idea that randomness is built into the system, and that's just wrong. It's a cause and effect universe. It's not a effect without a cause universe. All right, so if light is a force, then it carries momentum. Of course it does. Light moves things. Lasers kind of prove it now, right? I mean, you can focus the light and you can burn holes in things. How could you do that if light didn't carry momentum? Of course it carries momentum. Force equals mass times acceleration. Mass is always the dangerous player here. I'd say, obviously, if I was to recalibrate their system, I'd say, yes, you give the photon the mass of 1. It's the smallest discrete bit, is the bullets that make up a stream of light. So if they're bullets, you just count the individual bullets and say each bullet has momentum. Yes, everything moving the speed of light has momentum. And all those forces that do that are just made of bullets. And each bullet has an equal momentum. And if you shoot the bullets fast at something, you can tip it over. You shoot the bullet slow, you don't tip it over. So there's not more energy in the bullets. It just means that the way you shoot the bullets matters. If you want certain things to happen, you got to shoot the bullets fast enough for it to happen. I mean, everybody knows that, it's like shooting tanks. They often shoot 2 bullets on the same path. Is the first bullet heats up the metal, and then the second bullet goes through the melted metal. Crap like that. there's huge changes in the energy impact that are caused by how you time the interval of force. All right, see, but you're getting a little too close, Joey, to this, their dogma: force equals mass times acceleration. All of these things are conditional, and you got to be very careful when you're talking about subatomic particles versus planets. So if mass is 0, its force is 0. Well, again, I would argue nothing has anything that's a something can't possibly have a 0 mass. So I'm just arguing that simple premise. There's no such thing as a something that's a nothing. Anything that's a something is a something. If it's a something, it's not a nothing. Nothing has 0 mass. Everything else has mass. So I don't know what to tell you. If, on the other hand, you say mass is non-zero, then its momentum is not 0. Yes, but I'm not saying. So see, the argument is still the forces are fundamentally different than the matter bits. So I'm just saying we measure mass based on how much force is trapped between the matter. People have it exactly upside down. It's the matter bits that have no mass, and it's the force bits that create all the mass. You want to give an atom a lot of mass, you trap a lot of force in it. That's why the nuclear, big giant atoms go nuclear. It's because they got a whole lot of energy in them. And that's the real mass of the molecule, is the energy trapped between the little electrons and protons. The electrons and the protons are the massless elements. They only have mass when they're moving. When they're not moving, they have nothing. And the only reason why they move is because a voltage moves them, a force, something with mass. So in a sense, that's the point. And the point is that when you're thinking about gravity and mass, you have to recognize, though, wait a minute, gravity's a force, gravity's bullets, and bullets can't hit bullets except with matter as a conduit. Without matter as a catalyst, bullets can't interact with bullets. Force can only interact with force when matter is between the two forces. Then the two forces can interact. So I'm just saying you can't use this as hard rules. You can't just say something like force equals mass times acceleration. And fundamentally, I'm saying that's fundamentally wrong, just because they're not even understanding what mass is. Mass is force. They just have it defined. They have it completely, like everything, they have it completely upside down. Push versus pull, got it wrong. Wave versus particle, got it wrong. What has mass versus what doesn't, they got it wrong again. The matter bits have no mass. All right, let's try again. Oh, G waves, don't bother with that shit, please. I don't know what checkmate means. Okay, hi Gary. When G waves pass, there's no gravity wave, so fuck that premise. They are detecting a shortening of space. That's what they believe, but it's a fantasy. It's not happening in reality. But Albert Einstein's is space-time. Again, bullshit. Would that not still give a null result if the relationship between the two are proportional? Well, clearly they bend or shape their rules to what they want to attempt to prove. So I guess to some extent, if photons can be time dilated into being in the gravity twice as long, you've got to question their theory on these gravity waves moving the speed of light. they should be affected twice as much by gravity also, so they should be lensed all over the place or something like that. I mean, I'm just saying that clearly don't apply rules consistently. But I don't, the whole concept of the interferometer is, in my opinion, I've demonstrated is suspect. The whole theory of its function. So the existence of these gravity waves, which I don't think exist, is suspect, in my opinion. So it's not a physics. I feel I have an obligation to elaborate on how it works, or, but, it's fair to argue their own contradictions in their own theory. But look, what happens every time you get into relativity arguments, they just go forever, and you end up with some argument about whether or not relativity means that you can't have perpendicular forces anymore. It ends up with some, well, we have to agree to disagree thing. So I'm just saying it's, I don't think it's a very fruitful subject, but we'll see. Instead of a photon being force, I would, well, you're going to be wrong if you're going to argue something else, because I'm right on this one. I would argue that it is an atom that has a specific structure which creates an imbalance in the force around it. Well, that doesn't say anything, because we already know what atoms are made out of, essentially constituent parts. So what exactly are they imbalancing? There has to be an external force. Where's the internal force coming from? If you're claiming an internal force, then you have to explain how it has perpetual motion. Atoms don't have perpetual motion. I don't want to scare you to death here, but they don't. So I don't know why you think something has perpetual motion, because the only thing that has perpetual motion are the force bits. Photons go forever and never stop, but nothing. The bullets are always going. They just never stop. They interact with something and affect other bullets, but they never stop being bullets. They just get trapped going back and forth, or trapped doing this, or trapped doing a circle, or trapped some way, but they just get trapped. All right. If forces do not interact with forces, is it momentum only realized when matter is involved? Exactly. I'm just saying that if the universe was just the force, nothing would ever happen. Nothing can evolve. You could never tell the difference between the perpendicular reflection and completely missing, because the external universe would look exactly the same. But with a matter bit, you can see the difference, because the red force, you actually see it turn a new direction, and the black force moves a new direction. So the red force and the black force exchange their momentum. And that's a huge change you made in the universe. So that's what a matter bit can do, is it can make forces interact where they couldn't without the matter bit. All right. You should talk to the guy. I hate suggestions about who I should talk to. These people that aren't interested in talking. So if you want to point me to somebody who's actually interested in having a conversation, fine. Anyway, you should talk to the guy Isanti on YouTube. He has math you might like to look over. Why would I like to look over math that doesn't have anything to do with my theory? I mean, frankly, that's not going to help me any. I mean, fuck. He also has a, I don't know what that is, preton theory. I don't know what that means. Preton theory. I don't know what that is. I don't believe in a preton. Do you think there's a specific reason there are a certain number of particles in the universe, or just a brute fact? Well, it just, you're getting back to origin arguments. I could argue that the universe makes perfect nothing glass. Okay, so it just makes this glass called nothing, and it makes it tons and tons of it. And then at some point, something goes wrong because it's imperfect, the machine somehow, and every 1 zillion permutation, something goes wrong and the glass breaks. So the perfect nothing breaks, and now it's in little pieces. And now you have a universe. But the little pieces will tend to go back into glass again. something like that. I mean, there's lots of ways you can metaphor it, but again, I'm just going to make that shit up. Those are all going to be three bear stories. I'm just going to make shit up. There's no, there's just too few facts for me to be able to explain to you where the checkerboard came from, and then where did the checkers come from. I don't think we'll ever answer those questions. I just don't think there's going to be enough footprints left behind for you to ever find the perpetrator, so to speak, the mechanism that causes there to be something rather than nothing. All right. You know how much I don't believe in LIGO. I was just pointing out by their own theory, it completely flawed, just adding another nail to the coffin. Yeah, no, I'm not. I understand. I'm just reluctant from past experience to get into any arguments about the consequences of space-time perversions, because clearly they've had 100 years to put about 4 million catch-22 bullshitisms to make their nonsense make sense. So they have, they have all these, like it's the headlight effect. They have all these stupid things that they just say, this is what caused, this is what happens. Everything going this way, all of a sudden goes this way instead. And it, they don't have any reason why it does that. But what I'm saying? I'm just saying that all of a sudden laser, like, their theory is that laser beams, I can't shoot a laser beam perpendicular to my motion. So once I'm going half the speed of light, I can't do this anymore, straight across. My laser beam does this. I mean, with rules like that, yeah, they're going to win. Okay, because okay, what am I say that doesn't happen. Perpendicular is still perpendicular no matter which speed you're going. So that's a bullshit catch-22 pile of crap. But they have a ton of that shit, as you know. So I'm just saying it's not very fruitful ground for catching them, because they will undo the catch with another catch and another catch and another catch. The catch-22s never end. Okay, why would light travel across the universe in your system? Because it does. That's all it does. It moves the speed of light. I mean, fuck. Why? Why does a photon move across the universe? Again, why should I have to answer that? Why didn't you ask Einstein that? Why don't you ask every physicist in the universe that stupid ass dumb question? I mean, it's a retarded question. Why do you think light moves across? Why do you think light moved 14 billion light years across space, okay, for us to see it? Why did that longest traveling photon do it? Do you have the answer, retard? Does conventional physics have an answer, retard? No, they don't. Fuck you, Joey. I understand that the force doesn't interact with force. I get that. I just don't understand. Why would light travel across the universe in your system? I just said a minute ago that light has perpetual motion. It never stops. When it's inside matter, it's not stopped. Piro even agrees with that. Piro even understands that. That in the matter, light doesn't get converted into something. When the light goes in to the matter, it doesn't turn into ice or turn into some other thing. No, it's still force moving. All right. How do you explain the fact that when a single photon is shot through, well, I'm telling you, it doesn't happen. So I don't have to explain it because it's a lie. All right, but anyway, let's just read it. A single photon is shot through the two slits at a time. Eventually, all the photons cause an interference pattern. And again, they don't. First off, go watch the Veritasium video, and his results aren't even consistent with the math. Okay, they're completely inconsistent with the math. The central maxima is supposed to be 83% of all the light supposed to be in the central maxima. He didn't get anywhere near that. He got 8% in every single hump, no differences. So that didn't work. And second, obviously, it's not, in my opinion, it's not an interference pattern. It's an angle. And I've explained it in previous videos. Look them up on that subject. Look it up under the two-slit experiment, the word slit or something in the title, and you'll get the explanation. There's no need to split the photon in two and make two waves and all of that crap. It's simply photons hitting electrons in tension. And with each electron, the electron moves a certain distance and then moves back to its position, re-emits the photon at an angle. and that angle is always consistent. So if the photon hits 2 electrons, it'll move. Say if it hits 1 photon, it moves 3 degrees. If it hits 2 electrons, it'll move 6 degrees. If it hits 3 electrons, it'll move 9 degrees. Perfectly consistent with the pattern. So there's perfectly viable mechanical explanations. There's no obligation to believe any of your mush that the photons are interfering with each other or themselves. No need for interference to explain the pattern. Anyway, but you also say that the red and blue ones can collide. I didn't say that. Only inside of matter. So again, if you're going to say I say, you better say it accurate, Joey. So you're just lying some more. And that when they do, they bounce perpendicularly. Yes, I'm saying that when they go through matter, red bits can, electron energy can interact with proton energy inside of protons and electrons. They can't do it in free space. They can only do it when they're inside a proton or an electron, interacting with one. Fuck. Let's see. So wouldn't that mean that light scatters each time it hits a bit of the opposite color? So again, I can't make it any clearer. I say force doesn't interact with force. I've said it hundreds of millions of times. Literally. All right. I give you a condition that it's possible that the black force interacts with the black force and the red force interacts with the red force, but you wouldn't be able to see it because if these two forces are the same color, I can't tell the difference between them missing each other and them hitting each other. Both universes would look exactly the same. So I've explained this shit over and over again. I've just said it in this conversation about how the matter bit is the conduit. It is the catalyst which allows force to interact with force. Force can't interact with force unless it does it with a matter bit in between the forces. Couldn't make it clearer, and this asshole will misparaphrase me like that grotesquely. Fuck you, Joey. I mean, fuck you. Please read my last 2 comments in order, by the way. Fuck you. I mean, just fuck you. I know you like to straw man. No, there's no straw mans here. It's all public. Unlike Ken Wheeler, I don't delete these live streams. No chicanery's going on here, you little scummy liar. But it makes you look really two-faced when everyone can read right along with you. I would argue any rational person reading this would clearly understand that you just straw-manned me. I made it perfectly clear that force doesn't interact with force. I made it perfectly clear that it has to have a conduit. And then you implied that I didn't say exactly that and say it explicitly. So you're the fucking grotesque, obvious liar, you piece of shit. All right, so I'm blocking him now. So, I mean, here you are caught. Look, listen to this. You are caught deliberately misconstruing the commenters. How did I misconstrue anything you just said? Clearly, I made it explicit, and then he implied I just said something completely different from what I explicitly said, and I said explicitly. So fuck you, Joey. You're the liar here, quite obviously. You're the troll playing liar games. You can't honestly listen to what I say and repeat what I say as a premise to your questions. I said it as clear as could be. I said it directly answering another question, and then you just pretend I didn't say it. I mean, what a fucking cunt. Fair point, Gary. It just pisses me off how they change the goalpost to suit their needs. Yeah, no, I wish I mean, there's so much that's so paradoxically stupid about this whole bent space-time thing that they really should be outed as this just being a complete Goldilocks fable. There's no way to test it because we can't get anything up to speed. They're just telling us what the truth is, and they're saying, look at this great evidence we have, which is zero evidence. And it's really obnoxious. Maxwell leads to wrong theories of energy. Well, I think that's just crap. I don't know where you get that from. Maxwell's equations are pretty simple, and they they're basically accurate in the sense that they define what the forces end up being. I mean, they're pretty good equations dealing with from charge to magnetism. It's a pretty good unification of electricity and magnetism. So, sorry, I don't know what your agenda is, but I'm just saying you can't just say Maxwell leads to wrong theories of energy. That doesn't say anything. That's just your assertion. Where's your evidence that Maxwell's equations are fundamentally wrong, are elementally wrong? They're described wrong. They're clearly described as wave equations when they have their ray equations clearly. They're all about angles of straight line force. I mean, there's absolutely no waves in Maxwell's equations. It's just about straight line force. Interesting. So do the photons just interact with electrons in the air? Well, there's no electrons in the air. Electrons always end up going somewhere because of charge. So there's a free electrons around every material surface, collects electrons, to a certain height. Okay. But electrons don't do the free thing. They're always moved by charge, so they'll always find the imbalance in the force between them. It's like there's a star here and a star here, and you put a planet here. It's going to find the difference between these two stars, and it's going to move towards the closer one. And electrons do the same thing. So there's not a bunch of electrons in free space. There's electrons around atoms because all the protons are in the nucleus, and that means they can attract electrons without binding them strongly. So electrons can be very weakly bound to an electron, and that's what we call charge. All right, in the air, where do these electrons come from that you said the photons interact with? The electrons are free electrons in the sense they're not owned by an atom. So an atom doesn't own all of its electrons. It has a certain number that make up the atom. And then around every atom, there's other electrons, okay, that aren't property of the atom. And again, if there's a lot of them, we call it charge. But they're free, but they're loose. They're loosely bound. I don't know how, that's the best way. I think it's a nice way to say it. They're loosely bound to the atoms. And that's it. They lead to perpetual motion. They lead to perpetual motion. Well, where does Maxwell's, again, you say it, your assertions are not very useful. So you have to have a proof that Maxwell's equations lead to perpetual motion because they don't. Maxwell's equations do not account for the origin of the force. So they can't possibly be blamed for perpetual motion because they don't account for the force. Maxwell didn't call them virtual photons. He didn't call them ether. He wanted to. He called it nothing. He didn't account for the origin of the force. He explained what the force did. So he was doing the Newton thing. He didn't account for magnetism. He explained what it does. Just as Newton didn't account for gravity, he just explained what it does. So don't tell me that Maxwell's equations lead to perpetual motion because they don't create any energy. They just explain how the energy will be distributed. You get double out what you put in. That never happens, so it's just nonsense. You don't put anything in. Again, the equations are just used to state you have a certain amount of an N40 magnet or an N30. You have an electrical potential of 1,000 volts. It doesn't explain where the voltage came from. It doesn't explain where the magnetism comes from. It's saying when you have these quantities, this is what you can expect as an outcome. So again, there's nothing in Maxwell's equations that deals with causes. I think some misunderstand the photon. Well, obviously, I'm arguing that you all misunderstand it. Certainly, you, Chicken Little. I mean, it's only energy and a force. You don't see it until it interacts with matter. Well, that's correct. Photons can't be detected except completely. You can't brush up against a photon and say, oh, I felt the photon. No, it either hits an electron or you'll never know it existed. That's the two circumstances. You'll never see it, never know it happened. It'll never have any presence as a real thing in the universe. It'll be completely invisible, or it'll hit an electron. That's it. Otherwise, there's no such thing. I mean, even this laser beam, I'm not seeing the laser beam. I'm just seeing light that hits a particle of dust and flies into my eye. The photon I see didn't do this. It's not going straight across this beam, right? The photon I'm seeing, all right, the ones you're seeing right now in this screen are ones that died inside the camera hitting electrons. They never went all the way. They stopped going this way and they went right into the camera. So, yes, you're correct. All right. You don't see it until it interacts with matter. Your detector eye, well, I don't know. There's no point in putting two slit in there. There's no two slit in your eye. A structured magnetic field form from matter. There's no magnetic field in your eye, so I don't know where you went. There's no association between photons of light and magnetism. Magnetism is completely different functional force. It's created by segregating the two forces from each other. Photons are strictly electron force. There's no proton force in a photon. They're always black and they're never red. So photons are made out of only the energy that affects electrons. And magnetism is just segregating the red force from the black force. So you're mixing two subjects there, and that's very messy. There's no electromagnetic fields. There's none of that stuff exists. There's only force. So if force bits can only interact with each other via matter bits, yes, electrons and protons, does it follow that matter bits can only interact with each other via, yes, as I just pointed out, matter bits have no mass. They have no anything without the force. So the force has to, for matter to move, it has to either have a force reflect off of it, and then it moves a little, or it has to absorb the force and hold it and then move. But an electron can't do that perpetually because it doesn't have a mechanism that allows it to hold the force. So it loses its acceleration very quickly. So does a proton. So this is where it gets a little complicated. You have to really follow along. The pieces inside of what we traditionally call matter, the electrons and the protons, I can't throw one in space and it keeps going. I can't throw one to the moon. Can't throw a proton to the moon, can't throw an electron to the moon. Even with all the shuttle rockets in the universe, it can't get it there because I can't give it perpetual motion. I can't fire the rocket, get it going, and it maintains its velocity. Neither one of them can maintain their velocity. But an atom can, or the nucleus of a helium atom can, because it has a structure inside of it that allows the electron force to bounce in this kind of manner where it hits up twice as much as it hits down. All right. Let's see. Regarding the double slit experiment, so you said that the photons are really just interacting with electrons. Yes, not the electrons, but electrons on the surface of the material. Well, associated with the material, yes. They are passing through by following different angles. That's right. When they hit an electron, they move a specific angle. And if they hit 5 electrons, that means they move more. They add the angles up. So that the object, the light that goes all the way to the edge of the pattern is light that probably hit 30 electrons. All right. Let's see. So inertia is just matter kind of riding on the force bit. Well, like I said, when you use the word matter, we're already in trouble, right? Does this matter mean atoms or does matter mean electrons and protons? So electrons and protons have to ride on voltage. That means you have to keep pushing them. You have to keep shooting bullets at them to keep them going. They can only be accelerated. They can't hold velocity. But the matter bit can absorb the force, and that is the atomic type bit, can absorb the force in the sense the force gets locked inside of it, trapped, and the force can keep it going, like a little motorboat can keep going upstream. So if you have a motor, you can keep going upstream. If you don't have a motor, I have to keep pushing you. Let's see. So force bits are everywhere in space. Yes, just like the cosmic background radiation. So if you just thought of the cosmic background radiation times c squared, that is a bunch more of it in this really benign form of gravity, that is force without a frequency, that yes, that's all the force in the universe. That makes everything move. That external energy, that external pressure is what creates all of the movement. But doesn't the double slit experiment work for other particles? Well, as I've just pointed out in the beginning of this video, it doesn't work for radio waves. They've perverted the experiment by using sound waves carried on frequencies rather than just detecting the radio waves themselves, and it won't work. The radar experiments are a deception. Why do they do it that way? You can ask the simple question. Why do they always put a sound wave on top carried on the frequency? Why aren't they just detecting the energy? If they detected the raw energy, they would see there is no interference pattern. And obviously, all these particles are at a different frequency, and they have to be measured with different devices. Do those with other particles, I don't know what that means. Let's see. But doesn't the double slit experiment work for other particles and molecules besides protons? Again, when it works for electrons, the pattern is completely different. The central maxima is much dimmer, and it's a perfect gradation in the pattern, very smooth. Photons, not smooth at all, very harsh bars. So I'm just saying, no, the patterns aren't the same, and the cause of the pattern is fundamentally different. Electrons hitting electrons is a lot different than photons hitting electrons. Photons hit electrons. Electrons never hit electrons. They bounce off each other's force. So that's why it's a smoother pattern. Anyway, but I already explained that in this very video. The other particles and molecules besides photons. Do these other particles interact with electrons in a similar way to as photons? No, as I explained it earlier, but I'll explain it. Electrons are emitting force. So think of them as emitting bullets. And they're bullets that each other are sensitive to. So when two electrons move into each other, the bullets from one hit the electrons. So they get pushed by those bullets. So the two electrons never interact. They always bounce off the bullets the other guy's shooting. So they create a pattern for a different reason. It's fundamentally different physics. Electron on electron is fundamentally different physics than photon on electron. One is a force interaction between a force and a matter bit, and the other is a force interaction between two matter bits that are emitting force. Yeah. All right. Okay, so there are two types of matter bit, proton and electron, and something else, neutrons. So I've already explained neutrons are just protons and electrons, very close to each other. So neutrons they've already detected this, that when a neutron decays, that is when they strip it out of an atom and it falls apart, what they get as a product is a proton and an electron. So it seems quite obvious that that's all they are. A neutron is just a hybrid. It's just an electron and a neutron very close to each other. And so it's a conduit. I've explained this in previous videos. It's in the overview video in some of them. But, it's a little bit complicated. But if you have an electron between two protons, so here's a neutron. Electron an electron and a proton. Here's a neutron. Here's another proton. The catch is that any force that's red leaks out the black. So all the red force leaks out this black thing. So all the proton force leaks out the electron, and all the electron force leaks out the protons. So that means that these protons can get extremely close to each other if they have an electron between them. So that's the strong nuclear force. So they think of it as a strong force, but it's really the weakest force in the universe, because all the force is escaping, and that's why everything can get very close to each other. So they think it's a strong force pushing them together, but it's really the absence of force between them that's allowing them to be so close together. So the strong force, again, see, they got push-pull wrong, they got particle wave wrong, they got time dilation wrong, time isn't a dimension. Everything they could get 50-50 right, they got 50-50 wrong. And this is another example. The strong force is actually the weakest force. All right. Hey, Gary, in your theory, do orbitals, tricky word, have those weird shapes? No. I learned about in chemistry, or are they generally spherical shells? They're neither. The real function is magnetism. That's what really holds all this stuff together. So I could draw perhaps a quick drawing so you could try to illustrate it with maybe 5 electrons just for fun. And I need a little red marker, I think. Yeah. And maybe black for fun. All right, I don't even know if you'll see this, but we'll go for it anyway. So the idea of an atom would be you have the nucleus here, okay, which could be the protons. And then these are the electrons. I would argue that none of these electrons are moving, okay? They're all frozen in magnetic positions. So there's a force between the electron and the proton that's attractive, okay? That means the force is leaking out. The red force leaks out the electron. The black force leaks out the proton. That means there's low force between them, so they want to pull together. So they want to get pushed by the external force into this low pressure. The electrons hate each other, so they have bullets that bounce back and forth, and they never stop. They just keep going back and forth. So as they get closer together, the pressure gets higher and higher as they get closer together. So that's the repulsive force between the electrons. No leakage. The black force just keeps bouncing back and forth. So they're all in this tension. So all the electrons are in a tension. They're all attracted to this proton, but they're repelled by the other electrons. So they can't go in because that increases the force with these electrons. So they can't go closer to the proton because this force gets too strong, and they can't run away. This force can't push the electron out because this force is too strong. So the electrons just stay in tension. They're locked in tension. So when an electron is shared, it's literally shared. The other atom is actually sharing the electron in tension going this way. So this is the geometry. The geometry is fixed. There are no shells. There is no movement. There's just vibrations and tension. Everything's just vibrating in the tension. The pressure. Okay. Oh, I think I answered that. Purple again. I don't know what that means. So, thank you. Not very useful. All right. So Venus just doesn't want to. She says she's a girl, and you're behaving cliche like a girl. Amazing. I mean, just can't stay on the subject, can you? Just got to turn it into a cartoon, huh? I'll put you in a timeout. Jesus. I mean, fuck. All right. So, yay. Disco. Whoop, whoop, whoop. That's just, I mean, you all just get rid of. I mean, fuck you. fuck you people. I don't know what is wrong with your brains. You can't go find some Facebook page to go, talk about your poo and shit. I mean, just so fucking retarded. All right, thanks. My apology if it seems dense, if I seem dense. I think I'm trying to identify the matter bit carries velocity. I am missing something. Yeah, well, the electrons and protons can't carry velocity. They have to be accelerated. That's why electrons only move when they're in a high voltage. You have to put a voltage in, and the voltage is the force. So you have to push them with a force constantly or they stop moving. Same is true for protons. So those things you can't throw one into space and it keeps going. It won't do it. Momentum, inertia, okay, is a real thing. If you have a velocity, you have it because you captured force. So when you see the space shuttle with a giant flame coming out of its ass, think of it like there's a flame going into the space shuttle. You don't see it, but that's actually going into the matter of the space shuttle. The equal but opposite reaction is the space shuttle is absorbing energy going that way, and it's not releasing it. It's holding it. That flame doesn't go nowhere. That flame stays inside the shuttle, and that's why the shuttle keeps moving, is because it's holding that flame. All right. Matter, bit, and velocity. I'm missing something fundamental about your theory. I should watch the overview again. There's a few of them, but yeah, I mean, I sort of covered everything in a video somewhere, but yeah, I mean, obviously I don't think you should have to watch 700 videos, but, or 800, but so look, my early videos were just wrong about so much of this. So yeah, but the last, 20 or 30 videos were pretty good videos. All right, I see. Thanks. Let's see. Potential divergence difference. Potential difference equals voltage. Yes, well, voltage equals force. And, in the simplest terms, it's just increasing the pressure, and the pressure is increased by bullets. So it's more bullets, or it's bullets bouncing back and forth faster. I mean, you can increase pressure two ways. If you have two things and you have pressure between them, you can put more things. So if I have two tennis balls and I have a ping pong ball bouncing between them, there's a certain pressure that's pushing the tennis balls apart, right? Now, if I add more ping pong balls, well, that'll make more pressure. But if I put the two tennis balls closer to each other, that would also create more pressure, because now the ping pong balls are bouncing much faster and they're having impacts more often. And impacts are when you have a thing called energy. So it's the number of impacts that define the potential, the power, and that's voltage. Potential difference just means the number of impacts with matter. So as you increase voltage, you're increasing the number of times the matter is getting hit by force. All right, been thinking about the basic geometry in your theory. You seem to lean to square. Well, I just think square is simpler, and I think round is always just square fooling you with a leasing. Even the Earth, I don't think the Earth travels a circular path, perfectly circular. It goes a bunch of little straight lines that end up looking like a circle. Seems square for the trap argument, which makes sense. Well, the trap is obviously, even this is a trap, back and forth, right? This is a trap. If I had three things, proton, electron, proton, electron, this would be the trap. Yeah, I can have three things, four things. You turn, that would be the trap. Except it doesn't go free here. There's an electron here. So that could be the trap. Or the trap can be a square. So I'm just saying the trap can be an octagon. The trap could be a zoctagon. The trap just really represents the fact that the energy doesn't get out. It doesn't go free. It's stuck in a amount of space that it just retravels the same space over and over again. That's the trap. In your theory, square makes sense. I imagine that before the trap made 4 turns, it may have already been doing 3. Right, it can do any number. It can do 2. 3 is the key number because 3 is the one I was talking about before about what creates motion. So if I have a proton here, an electron up here, and an electron up here, the energy is going this 90-degree angle, and the force keeps hitting this way, and it keeps hitting this way. And I'm arguing that this 90-degree angle doesn't create force this way. It's just a rule. If it does, it's only half the force. Turning something 90 degrees is only half as hard as hitting something this way. So the electrons are being pushed this way more than the proton is being pushed that way. And that's what gives you velocity in a direction. So I'm sort of arguing that this double thing, this V shape, is essentially what creates everything that can hold velocity. All the things that hold velocity hold it because they have a bunch of these V's in them where the energy is, the atoms have turned and this thing is going, the V is pointing in the opposite direction of their movement. So the V is the opposite, they're moving in the opposite direction of that sail, so to speak. But that's the engine of velocity. So when you're being moved, the reason why it takes a while for you to get up to speed, when you're being accelerated, you don't accelerate instantly, is because it takes time for that energy to be configured into these V's. I think the truth will be very close to something like that. I feel fairly confident that is that describes the essence of the fact that this is all about geometry. A little break. It's nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Weather's improving. Okay. Been thinking about basic geometry in your theory. You already did that. Okay. Okay. So I found out that there's another person, Hothliday. Hothlida's an asshole. In addition to Piro. Again, Hothliday hasn't made a video in 6 months or something. Honest question. Why do you spend so much time on people you think are complete idiots? How do I spend so much time on those people? I mean, obviously, if somebody makes an argument, I'll respond to their argument. But exactly how I haven't spent any time on Hothliday in the last 2 months because he hasn't made any points or made any videos. And Piro came into the room, so I talked to him because it was in the fucking room. But otherwise, I don't bother with him. So, and again, how is this on the subject? It's not. You're not on the subject. Just crazy. I shouldn't respond to people who say I'm wrong or I made a mistake or I did something that I shouldn't respond to people who do that. No, I think those are exactly the people I should respond to. Someone got you a snowball, Gary. Working well. No, it's not a snowball. It's a real fucking mic. A real Yeti thingy. It's a big, monstrous super mic. When I go back to making news videos, maybe I'll keep the mic in front of me because I'll look all, respectable. Look at that big mic. Yeah, I wish I had a big mic like that. you know. But off the subject. But yeah, it really is nice. Very nice. I mean, I had gotten the cheap, $1 sound card to actually work pretty good, but yeah, this is better. So I can yell, and it doesn't go all wrong, which is good. So yeah, it's very nice. It's very, very nice. It was from the physics community, people in the physics room, that I did get the mic. So, acknowledgement to this Draft Science channel created the improvement in my, my video production. So, yay for physics. Physics did it. Power of physics produced a new microphone. All right, the break has lasted long enough. Somebody could type something. Then I won't have to go think of something to rag about. Oh, I should post a link to the Ken Wheeler video, but I think everybody's seen it. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. But any Ken Wheeler fans out there, go look up whatever his name is, Larry something or other, a photographer. And he made a video about Ken. It just, I mean, Ken Wheeler's just got so much of an ego. He can't admit that he totally fucked up. That he let some guy totally game him, and that he totally just went way over the top and totally exaggerated everything. The guy wasn't having cancer surgery. The guy wasn't doing it. It's none of this stuff. He made this whole preposterous scene, and he was wrong about all of it. And he won't just admit, oh, I fucked up. So he might get sued, which is funny. But on his videos, it's just so funny because obviously the people who are kind of pissed off are all down rating all his videos now. And so now he has the same number of upvotes as downvotes on every video. And yeah, and a lot of his listeners have no clue. They haven't figured out what's going on. They think, oh, people don't like your your wooey religious theories, and that's why they're downvoting your videos. Now it has nothing to do with his wooey Buddhism. No, anyway, that's just kind of funny that he's finally getting what he deserves, which is a little bit of payback for being a. He's constantly exaggerating. I mean, this whole gold thing, he goes, I've proven that you can collect more gold, and I've proven it. Hasn't proven anything. All right, let's get physical. So I don't know. I mean, Venus, you're just going to keep doing retarded stuff? I mean, you really want me to block you? I mean, I tend to want to give girls the benefit of the doubt, but come on. All right, let's see. Have you got any experiments you'd like to do or seen done? Yeah, well, the radar one I'd like to do. I just don't want to spend $300 on equipment to do it. You can do it with an AM radio, but I have to transmit a very strong signal. And I'm a little, I don't know if I should be able to make an AM transmitter. It shouldn't be that difficult. But I want to do the experiment well enough so when I prove it, without question. But that's a real doable experiment just to prove that this has nothing to do with interference. It has to do with jamming radio signals. I mean, it just has absolutely nothing to do with radio signals interfering. It has to do with radio signals jam. Let's see. Any outstanding questions regarding your own take on physics? Well, there's lots of stuff, I mean, but I do have to find the experiments that'll disprove, unfortunately. But they're hard. It's like I said, you can't disprove relativity, because I can't do any speed of light experiments, that's for sure. like I said, doing a simple experiment on my porch, I've demonstrated the whole problem with interferometers. I mean, I proved that you could split light 50-50 with a plain piece of glass, that you don't need anything called a beam splitter, and that a beam splitter can only mess up the beam splitter that's a plain piece of glass. You can only make the beam splitter worse by putting half silvering on it or by creating a prism. So it can't possibly, this notion of what a beam splitter is, I think I've proven is just bullshit, absolute bullshit. People have I had the impression that you had to do something special to create a beam splitter. There's absolutely nothing special about it. It's a simple function of surfaces. And two glass surfaces, the front and the back, will do 25%, 25%, and it'll give you 50% of the light will be reflected. But that's a whole nother misnomer in physics, is that surfaces are really where the light is refracted. And it's really important how far away the surfaces are. And a lot of things decide, it's all optics. I mean, it really is optics. It's not physics in that sense. It's all about these internal reflections. So anyway, so I'm just saying, I think I've destroyed the field of interferometry in the sense I've destroyed their explanation of what's causing the pattern, and that the pattern isn't about two light beams being out of alignment. It has to do with how much the light diverges, and they're measuring the divergence of the light. They're not measuring the out of phaseness of light. So they've way exaggerated the accuracy of their instrument. All right, let's see. Ken is a fat turd, but I'm convinced that draft science addendum is a Chinese-backed psyop. Well, again, you want me to play with this mushy text? What do you want me to say? Fuck you again? I'm really not interested in jokes, especially bad ones. So I guess it's goodbye this time. See ya, electron vape. Did you get a chance to look up that video, Why Can't We Find a Theory of Everything, Eric Weinstein? I guess not, but I think I've already seen it as stated. So, but yes, I will revisit the subject. I'm sure it's I mean, they can't, because they're not willing to follow evidence. That's why they can't find it, is because they keep jumping evidence rather than following evidence. Put simply, I should have a file open where I could put the link, but well, they'll save it in my clipboard probably. I keep forgetting Linux has a nice little clipboard feature that saves your clippings. It's, I remember I used to use that all the time, like when I had Windows 95 or something. I had a little add-on that did that, and that was really quite useful. And then it wouldn't work in XP, so I had to quit using it. And it's just funny now to have it again. I don't use it. I can't get used to, oh yeah, I could just go get my clip from there. I saved that. Anyway, I like your explanation of interferometers. Do you think the entire reasoning behind interferometer waves in light is bogus? Well, I'm saying the theory of interference as being the function is bogus. And I would argue that that makes bogus the idea that they're measuring 20 or 30 nanometer differences in distance. So they think they can measure 20 nanometers of a wavelength difference between the two beams of light. 20 nanometers, very small distance. So they think they're doing this, millionth of a millimeter kind of measurement, and they're really only doing billionth of a millimeter, and they're really only doing something that might be 10, something 10 or 100 times less tiny in terms of a movement. their accuracy is way exaggerated because they think they're actually seeing the difference, between tiny changes in light beams, and they're not. Sounds like it would be if it's discrete bits. Well, I don't think discrete bits is the point. The point is that whether you think of them as discrete bits or waves or any other kind of bullshit, the point is that it's the divergence of those rays that they're measuring, not the out of phaseness of the rays. They're both measuring tools, but one of the tools is much less accurate, much less, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word for smaller scales on a ruler? It's less granular. It's less. It's a word for that. Anyway, it's not as accurate as they think it is. I'm just, when they did this whole argument, the LIGO people say things like, we could measure the thickness of a butt hair on Alpha Centauri, and you're like, what are you talking about? Sure you can. Preposterous claims about how small a thing they can measure. And it's all based on just a theoretical notion that, yes, we're measuring out of phaseness of light beams. And so their assumption that that's what they're doing has defined how accurate their ruler is. But if they're wrong about their assumption, then the ruler isn't that good. There's no way to fact check them because it's all just a claim based on their assumptions. It's not a claim based on evidence. They never proved their interferometer by swinging a Volkswagen over the tube. That's all they'd have to do to prove how accurate it was. Is all they have to do is swing a Volkswagen over the top of one of the tubes. And if their machine can detect it, then they know they can actually sense this tiny bit of gravity. But clearly, they haven't never done a test like that. They never did a land-based test to demonstrate how sensitive their machine was. Not a single one. Right there should make you skeptical. When you don't even test your instrument on something available, that's pretty obvious, right? Let's see. I'm just super curious how you'd react to his take on it. Thanks. Yes. Well, like I said, I think I did a video. I don't know. You could type Weinstein into my videos, draft science and Weinstein, and see if any of my videos come up. On a YouTube search, because it sounds familiar. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it's not, but it sounds familiar. Do you do live shows on Ephilism? No. I don't think it would work as well. I used to do live rooms, but YouTube made that impossible because it lets the trolls destroy the room. So there's no point. You can't do live rooms on YouTube, open rooms. And I find discussion with more than 2 people at a time always gets sidetracked, so that doesn't work either. But I'm willing to have conversations about Ephilism with people. So if somebody wants to talk about it, I'll talk about Ephilism with people. I'll debate them, or I will whatever. But I just don't think it's very fruitful for me to do this comment kind of thing on a philosophical subject. Philosophy is a little deeper than this typey stuff. It's just more, I don't know if it's not deeper. That's the wrong way to say it. The arguments are just more complicated, and the real problem is just communicating with people. So the real subject is always just how do you get through the cement head psychology of the intransient idiot, the idiot who knows nothing about subjects but has opinions. How do you argue with idiots who have very little knowledge and very strong opinions? But that's really the only problem. The arguments are so simple and so basic that anybody being honest can't miss them, and it's only assholes who can miss it. So Stephen Coda, right? Nicely done. I don't know what that's regarding, but thank you. I try to nicely do things. mostly. So, half-hour warning. I do have to go around 10 o'clock. So, enough time for another cigarette. I'll smoke them all in 3 hours, and then I'll be out of cigarettes for 3 months again. But I just love cigarettes. Love them, love them, love them. Cut the filter off. Just nasty, stupid invention filters. They'll just put enough to stop the tobacco from going in your lips, but not enough to stop any of the good poison. And it feels like it's leaking too. They're all broken. Close enough. Very bad habit, by the way. Don't ever get addicted to nicotine. Just saying, as an addict, it's the meaning of my life. But that's only because I'm an addict that it has any meaning. No other reason. It's stupid. It's wasteful. It's not good for you. It burns holes in stuff. Every now you burn your penis. I mean, nothing good about cigarette smoking. Except when you're addicted, it does give life meaning. It's good for doing physics, actually. I mean, I have to admit that probably, yeah, I probably wouldn't have been able to unify physics without nicotine. Probably nicotine did it. I wasn't smart enough on my own. So, well, the vape, you did vape with nicotine in it, or did you do vape with flavors? I mean, obviously, you got addicted to nicotine vape. It's kind of a weird thing to do to get addicted to nicotine vape, because I imagine when you vape nicotine and you weren't addicted to cigarettes, it got to make you sick a little bit, you know. So, I mean, even getting addicted to cigarettes is a little bit raunchy at first. I mean, the first couple of cigarettes are pretty horrible. And then after that, they're the most beautiful thing ever invented. So, but I would imagine vaping would be even more obnoxious. Vaping nicotine if I wasn't addicted. Ew. Ew. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, everybody's different. Obviously, I'm a nicotaholic. So there's no little amount of nicotine for me. It's just me and nicotine always got along. Never had a bad cigarette in my life. It's best friend I ever knew was nicotine. Yeah, I don't know if it makes me feel good, but it sure does something to the brain. It just makes it work better. I can see clearly now through the nicotine fog. Ooh, cramp in my leg. Oh, 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 ow, 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 ow. Oh, I had a feeling that might happen. I was standing on a sloped surface all day today, all morning. It's probably very bad for my muscles. Oh, it's probably good for them. They got exercise, but yeah, too much exercise. So anyway, come on, physics, physics. Please, please, please. Questions, comments, something. 28 viewers. It seems I'm stuck at it's like my peak. I hit 30 and then it drops to 28. 30 and 28. Yeah. I have to get a larger audience to annoy. 27. Ugh, declining. Yes, well, the conversation is sort of running down. So I have to make up something, I guess. All right, what other subjects are there that I'm working on? My crappy little notes way over here if there's something else. Blight of the Gibites. Oh, that's something else. Glibites. Yeah, different subject. Yeah. Let's see. I love a tour of your home. Yeah, we're not getting that. It's like the peeling ceiling. It's not a, it's like a tour of a well, whatever. It's my home, so I'm not going to complain, but can you say something about looking for falsification versus confirmation? I don't know. I just don't like getting stuck in that kind of crap. I mean, the evidence is the evidence. There's either a lot of it or there's none of it. You know, it's like evolution has a lot of evidence. Darwin provided a lot of circumstantial evidence, and then we got a lot of hard science that backed up Darwin. And there's just a difference between hard evidence and weak evidence. And a lot of this stuff has to be argued as circumstantial evidence. It's hard to, I can come up with some hard evidence. I think I did for the interferometer, the hard evidence that a plain piece of glass is a perfectly good beam splitter. Why would you fuck with it? Why would you complicate it when the plain piece of glass works? So I think that's a very good evidence-based argument. I don't think it really has anything to do with confirmation or falsification. It just has to do with that's a pretty hard piece of evidence that something's wrong with their theory if they're using something other than the simplest beam splitter. Why are they using a more complicated beam splitter if it's just about making two equal beams? The plain piece of glass makes two equal beams, as equal as you can get. Why would you use something more complicated that screws it up? All right. Does the cosmic pressure, the force, or the energy that drives all the interactions multidimensional? Well, I don't know what that even means. Yes, the force is in 3 dimensions. So yes, it's working in all 3 dimensions, but there's no other dimension. Are primarily from one direction. Well, the cosmic background radiation isn't from one direction. So again, it seems like sort of a question you should have been able to answer on your own. You know. It's coming from all directions equally. Thanks for the response, Gary. It's late here or early. Either way, it's bedtime. You know, take care. And if you stream with, if you, well, I mean, you don't have to worry about well, whatever. I mean, yes, yeah. Have a good one and such. Someone made a clay model of your home. Well, it wasn't just someone. It was Amanda, our old fan. And it was more than just a clay model, obviously. It was 2 years of work, and it was pretty amazing. So you've already seen a tour of my home. So what you don't really need another one. Yes, Piro has been here. That's correct. And he brought cigarettes. Which is the way you gain passage. So yeah, he was here and we just argued for 2 hours. Like that's all we did. We just spent the whole time arguing. Night. I will continue absorbing content of your videos in my spare time. Thank you. I appreciate the effort and the willingness to give it the benefit of the doubt and all that stuff. That's all I'm asking. I'm just asking people, just give it the benefit of the doubt. Listen to it with an open mind. and compare the two theories and say which one really makes more sense. And such. And so forth and whatnot. Yeah, I could do it the screen sharing thing, I suppose, and show you the Veritasium results. Let's see if that'll work. Let's try a screen share, see what happens. Don't really like using these gimmicks, but give it a shot. Your entire screen. Well, I guess we'll do the entire screen as long as no porn shows up. Share. Okay. And then if I go here, so that should be visible. That's the chart of the Veritasium results. And so he cycles through it really quick, where, they cycle from the beginning to the end in a very quick manner. I should be able to play this. I'll play it
over a period of time and see if any pattern emerges.
So look at that. You can. All right. So look at that. And the amazing part is this is nothing like the mathematics. The mathematics says the middle peak should be huge, 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 huge. And this is smaller and smaller and smaller. And obviously these ones on the end are almost bigger, wider than these ones here, and they shouldn't be. And all the darks are half light. So just see right there, you can see half light. So that means that either half the photons he was getting were random photons. So there was noise. So half the signal was noise. I mean, a huge problem in doing the experiment that way. And yet, no, he says this is a success. This is the interference pattern, even though it doesn't match the math at all, not even close to the math. So, I mean, that's the bullshit that's out there. All right, so let's see if the stop button works. Well, the stop button worked, but now I don't have a video. Ah, there it came back all by itself. Yay. So proud of it. All right, so there, that should have worked. Do fat people disgust you? Okay, well, no, I use fat as a joke and all that stuff. It's obviously easy to pick on people that are fat. So it's, kind of a cliche for, lazy thinkers, lazy eaters, all of that kind of crap. But it's really not relevant. So I'm going to time out you again. You just keep bringing up shit I really don't want, I'm not interested in. Girls always seem to want to do this personal stuff. They never want to sit there and actually do something that doesn't have to do with something personal. All right, your theory makes more sense than relativity. I've been trying to wrap my head around that idea for years. Well, the whole idea of time as a dimension is so dangerously stupid. Just the idea of calling something space-time when you really mean nothing time. Space is supposed to be nothing, not something. It just breaks language. I found out about you yesterday. It already makes more sense what you are. What are your favorite books? Dr. Seuss Encyclopedia. And Horton Hears a Who was pretty good too. Yeah, I don't have any. Fuck books. Books are just. Books are so much bullshit. I mean, thousands and thousands of unnecessary words. I mean, I've never read a book where I said, oh, wow, that was so well done, except if it's a story. There's great books like Jaws was a great novel. Dune was a great book. I mean, the movie wasn't exactly what I was imagining. It was a little darker and grayer and stinkier and all that crap. And the book was a lot better, in my opinion. It was a great book. It was just really well written in terms of telling the story. But yeah, novels are good, but science books suck. My opinion. I haven't read anything that was any science book that was ever fun to read. Your theory makes. I've been trying to wrap my head. Favorite books. Yeah, I already did that. Fat people make me sad. So, okay, what the fuck, dude, dude. I guess. Yeah. Well, I can block him. Oh, I hate you psychotic sickos. Why don't you just, again, go be sick on Facebook or someplace. Go throw up someplace where it doesn't matter. Ugh. But they're so jolly. Well, don't join in, please. Most of them aren't jolly, frankly. The whole, it's sort of a lie. A lot of fat people are carrying guns going, where are the Mexicans at? I need to feed my dog. Yeah, when they made the movie, I was like really excited. Like, they finally turned a story I really liked into a movie. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then, but the movie really wasn't. Should have been okay. They had some pretty good actors in it. It really wasn't, but they just made it too dark. I hate all those sci-fi stories where everything is so dark. And you're like, why wouldn't everybody just blow their brains out? It's like even Lord of the Rings, right? I mean, they're fighting for humanity, and all the humanity is living in squalor, right? Absolute shit. Even the kings are living pretty crappy lives. And it's just like, why wouldn't you all just kill yourself? Why do you want to save yourself for what? I mean, let the creepy monsters inherit the earth because it's just suffering and doom and dirt and horror, right? I mean, all the peasants are filthy. I mean, it's just like save your life for what? What? Ugh, so you can drink dirty water and eat crappy food and be cold and miserable. Anyway, just really bad. Yeah, well, I mean, it just it was a desert, and they made the desert look like not. I mean, like I said, it was and the special effects were mediocre. I mean, they did the worms okay-ish, but it was just you could see all these. It looked like special effects. You know what I mean? It just wasn't very good. And, but anyway, all the villains were too. They were too grotesque, and it was just I just didn't get the sense of it being that dirty in the book. The book just didn't seem as filthy as the movie turned out to be. I mean, the Harkonnens were just preposterously, they were way over the top, and it was too over the top. I mean, they should have had them eating fetuses and stuff, but not, it was just too crazy. Well, it wasn't really Frodo's house, right? It was the other guy's house. Whatever his name was, Bingo Bangy or whatever his name was, the dragon killer. Now, I was really pissed because I watched one of those Hobbit movies, the first one, and it was really sucked because the ending was, look, the dragon's coming. And they ended the movie. Look, the dragon's coming. And they ended the movie. I mean, you're like, what? You're ending the movie here? Well, what is that? What the fuck is that? I just watched 2.5 hours of this bullshit so you can end the movie with the dragon's coming. I mean, oh God, I was so pissed. Yeah, I mean, I don't really mind sequels if you set it up like Lord of the Rings set it up that way, but at least they resolved all the real issues before they moved to part 2 and part 3. You didn't feel like there was some real hanging thing, and but that Hobbit thing was just so, like I said, the whole fucking story was about the dragon, and the dragon isn't it? He's gold plated, pissed off, ready to kill, and the movie ends. It's like, oh, you can't do that. No. So I just want everybody to die. Once that happened, I wanted the dragon to kill them all immediately. Fuck them. So anyway, I really shouldn't be talking about movies. It's my own fault dragging that subject up. But anyway. But the physics in movie is so bad. The physics is just so bad. Ugh. That Interstellar was such an obscene piece of crap. Yeah, I'm just saying that I don't really need you people to make it worse, okay? I have my own inability to stay on the subject sometimes, so that's bad. But I don't need any of you making it worse. So I'm still going to argue. You have to type that crap. I'm just doing this, off my brain. So I have some excuse for being off subject now and then, but you don't have any excuse because you have to type it and then hit the enter key and the send key. So you can already look at it and say, oops, that's off subject. I won't do that. Gary doesn't like that. No, I didn't see the old Twin Peaks. I'm totally uninterested in. I haven't had a television for more than 10 years, and I certainly don't watch it on the internet. So anything that's been on television in the last 10 years, I haven't gone near. I saw like 2 episodes of The Sopranos, and I couldn't see what everybody was so hooked about. Didn't impress the shit out of me. So, but anyway. Yes, well, that is one way to do it. You can turn everything into physics. The photons are coming at me at a certain resolution, that is pixel depth, and they're blinking at a certain rate where I have the illusion that something's moving when it really isn't moving. But obviously, you can see the flaws when you just do this. But I love the way that just duplicates tension, right? That just looks like tension. The other electrons are in tension. They're not really moving. They're just vibrating in space. So I'll give you another 12 minutes. Just because, I'm a nice guy. So I guess we don't have to do anything serious for 12 minutes. But so get it out of your system. If you have any dopey questions, type them now. I guess they're long, dopey questions. Do you wonder how a brain generates our minds? Well, I've obviously talked about it many times, about how this illusion is created. The theater and an asshole sitting in the chair watching what's happening. But that's essentially what our consciousness is. And it's all because you can't fake feelings. You can't turn a feeling into a thought, because then it wouldn't affect us, right? If it just said pain, it was the word pain, we'd be like, yeah, big deal. Who cares? Fuck you. So it has to be something grokky. It has to really be something that can pull on us. And that's why we're conscious. It's because the only way to do that is to create this illusion of a me and balls getting crushed. I mean, it's this, it's the generation of pain that is the real brain magic. Because once it does that, then it can associate house with pain or bear with pain, and it can associate things with things. And then it does the associating with the feelings. And that's essentially all we're doing. But we're doing it quite robotically. I mean, we're just biological robots, running our programs. Sleepy, dopey, fatty, stupidy, trolly, farty. We're just, we're just characters reading their script. So it's not a very fun subject when you start realizing that I'm just mimicking and recombining a bunch of junkyard shit. I'm really not inventing anything. I'm just combining pieces of crap. When I heard your idea of magnets as filters of force bits, you should have been amazed. Let me see if that's what he was. The idea is really amazing. Yes, isn't it? It amazed me when it occurred to me how simple it is. It's a filter. Oh, it's so fucking obvious. No more virtual photons. It's just so obvious. And it works so well. It's like, oh, Gary, you are brilliant. That's when I really said, oh, yeah, that's a good piece of evidence that you're brilliant, Gary, because fuck, that's just so simple, so obvious. And and then the other turd balls thought of it. I mean, it's just so fucking obvious. All right. Anyway, I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how it could be done asymmetrically, but couldn't. I don't know what that means, but I think it works beautifully. But it feels so different to think it's just a chemical reaction. Yeah, well, it's more than a chemical reaction. It's obviously an electrical interaction, and but it's just bits of information. I mean, it's just it's just programming. I mean, you have to teach us how to talk. You have to teach us how to do everything. Everything we do, we had to learn how to do it. We're just programmed. Let's see, when will you be releasing your new mixtape? I don't know what that means. I'm obviously much too old for whatever that is, a mixtape. I don't know what the fuck a mixtape is. It's like some kind of Mexican thing. It's a Mexican. I don't do Mexican tapes. I probably could make a sombrero and pretend to be Mexican, but I don't think so. Your channel always has me glancing towards my microwave when the tone goes off in your home. What is that? Yeah, sorry about that. I have to, the water here is well water, and they finally tested it after 20 years and found that it ain't so good. But the landlord won't pay to actually have it cleaned. So I cook it just in case. So, all the water I use, I have to microwave first just to be safe. I mean, there's no obvious bacteria, but it's got too much chlorophyll in it, which means there's some groundwater seeping into the well water and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that's why the microwave beeps is because I put the water in there and then I just leave it. I walk away and do other things and I just forget it. And because I'm so used to the beeping sound, I don't even notice it. Yes, I remember whatever he was on Saturday Night Live reading the "Kill My Landlord" poem. It's just kill my landlord. Yeah, it's a slimy business to be in. I mean, the landlord now is actually the son of the landlord, and they don't want to be landlords. They're trying to sell the place. So I don't really blame them, because they don't want to be in this business. But yeah, the real landlord was just pathetically cheap. I mean, they're just looking at you like a piece of, like a commodity. It's just about how much money can I make off of this fuckhead. That's all you are to them. You're you know you're you're a horse or a cow, and you're only good to them as long as you're producing milk. That kind of thing. You're just a commodity to be owned by them. It should be illegal. I mean, we shouldn't live like this. This whole for everything for profit is just foul. People should get paid for doing good work, and that's all you should get paid for, doing good work. Owning other people isn't good work. And inheriting is really not good work. So just insane that we applaud inheritance. Just disgusting. That's really off subject for this channel, but I do have to throw it in now again. People are so stupid. I mean, the most disgusting way to gain victory or superiority, inherit it. The most disgusting way you can do it, and people applaud it. It's amazing. It just amazes me. Ever going to contribute to fair economics? Yeah, well, it just the separate channel thing didn't really work the way I wanted it to, and that it was the same audience on every channel, so I wasn't, just smaller, so it really wasn't doing what I was kind of wanted it to do. So that's why I quit diversifying. And YouTube also made it difficult because they forced you to tie all of your channels to a phone number, but they would only allow you to do 2 to 1 phone number. So I had like 12 channels, and I'm like, fuck, I can't, I don't have enough phone numbers. So that was part of the reason why I quit segregating the content, was just that YouTube made it difficult for me to maintain the channels, and make it easy for me to switch which channel I was using and to have the same. I mean, I couldn't do live rooms in some of the channels. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do, it was just stupid. And such. A couple minutes, it's almost done. So anyway, thank you. It was pretty active for a while anyway. We were doing pretty good. And such. And yeah, I have to do some more work, and then I'll have some more stuff to talk about, because I'll be on more specific subjects. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, there's so much I have to do, and so few me's to do it. Well, I'm doing okay-ish. I'm still here, and still, I'm, I don't like being old. There's a lot of things I'm not liking, and but whatever. Life has gone so weird in so many ways. I mean, there's so many things that are just like, it can't be possible the world works this way, kind of stuff. So I think it's going to get weirder and weirder, because I think all this shit is going to start blowing up. Global warming and unsustainable spending and all this bubble markets and the rest of it. It's all going to create some gigantic problems soon. But I've been predicting it for 10 years, so can't take my predictions for much good. Let's see. They changed it to 2 channels a year now with the same number. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's no good. I don't know what 2 channels a year means, though. 2 new channels a year. So you can add 2 a year. Oh, okay. So I can add 2 more now, you're saying. Well, then maybe I'll try to do that. Yeah, I got your cigarettes, thanks. But they're all bent. I don't know what happened to them. But when the packs is open, somebody stole some of the cigarettes. I guess you must have got them. I would imagine you got the open pack cheap. Yeah. But anyway, excellent. Thank you. It did come in handy. Saved the day, actually. So appreciate it. I needed that, as they say. Like, you're not a Democrat, but you're not a Republican either. Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, I would be a Democrat if Democrats weren't for unsustainable, crazy spending that's totally unaccountable, credit card spending, and let's let every foreigner in the universe come here to have babies and be religious kooks. So as long as they love religious kooks and spending money they don't have, yeah, it's hard to be a Democrat. But yes, Republicans are always worse. Okay, always. Because Democrats are at least trying not to be assholes, where Republicans are trying as hard as they can to be assholes. My mailing address isn't too complicated, but you could just email me and I'll send it to you. Anything at donotgod.com should get to me. So cigs at donotgod, and I shall respond appropriately and appreciate you, thanking you and such. But tobacco, I have to smoke it in a pipe or something. I have to make a peep. Yeah, make a peep. Good enough for me, I guess. Let's see. Is I didn't know about you or not everybody. Yeah, right. So I already did that. Okay, so we're done. It's after 10. That's the deadline. So thank you very much. And till the next time, which who knows when it'll be. Like I said, I try to mix it up, give the Europeans a chance, all that kind of shit. But we'll see. This is sort of a good time in some respects. So I might do this time most of the time and do other times some of the time. And that might work. I don't know. That's how email domains work. I didn't know. Yeah, well, once you own a domain, then everything goes to that, everything goes to one mailbox if you set it up that way. So everything goes to one mailbox. Let's see. If I have a thoughtful comment or message or interesting news piece, I should post it on your site comments. Well, that's okay. Or you can email it, or you can do lots of things. Thanks for the stream. Believe global warming. Yes, global warming is, we've taken a ton of carbon that was sunk in the ground and put it in the atmosphere. If you don't think that has an effect, we're basically putting all the carbon the dinosaurs and all the plants put into the ground over time. That's why it got cold. It's because all of that growth went into the ground, created bogs, and got sunk in the ground and turned into oil and coal. We're taking all that stored carbon and pushing it into the atmosphere. So we're putting the Jurassic back in game again. We're making it back into the Jurassic Park. If you don't believe that, you're really being just plain stupid. Why do you think oil is black and coal is black? Because it's full of carbon. Oh, Jesus. All right, see a good time for me. Shampoo. I can recommend a shampoo. My hair is very clean. It's just that it's not long as it used to be, so it does this fuzzy thing a little more. And I'm also fucking old. So go show me the 58-year-old who still has hair this good. Fuckhead. Shampoo is not going to fix it. I need better vitamins, actually. But anyway, fuck you. Fuck you and your crappy advice. It was crappy. I hated it. It sucked. Anyway, ending broadcast. Till next time and such.